Hello, and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 1887. Meredith is with me.
Hi.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my very cheerful introduction.
Yeah.
Yes. And happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely cheerful.
Okay, good. So today's topic is in-depth. We're with Meredith, and we're talking about goal setting today.
Yeah.
Yes. So with New Year's coming up, people make New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
Have you made New Year's resolutions before?
Yes.
Done. Okay.
Podcast over.
What were they? What did you make resolutions about?
As in the first time I made resolutions?
Just in general, do you make weight loss ones, exercise ones, financial ones, life ones,
Yes.
all of the above? That's what, I figured. Leading the witness.
Yeah. But when I was in high school, it was always diet.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Always.
That is the most typical New Year's resolution is, lose 30 pounds and whatever.
And it was always whatever diet they published in Cosmo.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yes.
A bowl of fruit for breakfast, yogurt, and 5 pretzels for lunch.
Yeah, I'm going to eat 4 blueberries every day.
Yeah.
That's it. Because they have antioxidants.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if you don't do it, you're a failure.
Yes. That is the kind of the extreme of it is I'm going to go from doing nothing for myself to immediately prioritizing everything the way that it should be. Surprisingly, that's not going to go well.
Yeah.
I'm a piece of crap, and I'm going to go back to doing nothing.
Especially when I don't have a car, I don't make money, and I need to eat certain foods. So it's your mom who has to go to the store and buy all these things, and it it kind of leads into the now not setting goals that are technically outside of your control.
Yeah. Well, I've talked about that in the podcast before. I've shared when I was younger, I drank a gallon of milk a day.
Yes.
And that was because
Younger as in 36 and 37.
Yes, I started that when I was, I think 17 or 18. Mm-hmm. I did it for 2 years. Drank a gallon of milk every day for 2 years. Never missed a day.
It makes me nauseous.
But I read a bodybuilder, Lee Priest from Australia, ate a whole chicken, a loaf of bread, and drank a gallon of milk. And that's how he said he got big. Yeah. But at that age, I was I live in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So unless I'm killing that chicken myself, I'm not getting the chicken. And I thought bread was carbs, and carbs make me fat. Mm-hmm. Right. So I was but I can do the milk. It's you were saying is you wanted to do a diet that you felt like you had some control over.
Right.
Yes, which is good recognition.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I want to know more about this milk thing.
It worked horribly well. I gained weight, but it was majority fat.
Right, because of all the
more
sugar
than anything. Yes.
Yeah.
So, plus I'd been anorexic for 2.5 years before that, which didn't help.
So your metabolism was great.
Yes.
You can handle all of the milk calories
0.
well.
Yes. Yeah. But that was the goal, was trying to gain. I had tried to get bigger muscles and leaner for 2.5 years. Got neither. Mm-hmm. So then I was well, if I'm going to be fat, at least I'm going to be big and fat. Mm-hmm. So I just think I'd eat more and be bigger.
Yeah.
And it worked. I was bigger and fatter. And then I was this isn't what I wanted either.
I wanted the bigger, not the fatter.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah. So that was unfortunate.
Have to wait for the next issue to publish in a few months, and then I read, oh, just kidding, we messed up.
Yeah, what's the anti-milk diet? When you want to unmilk.
Gross.
Yes. We're going off track. Okay.
That's what we do.
Yes. Okay, so those were some, so we've set New Year's resolutions before. Mm-hmm. Do you set them now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
ish. What do you, so explain the ish.
It's having the pop quiz. Ooh. What number of podcast was it when we talked about goals before?
Oh my.
Yeah, I don't know.
You keep talking.
900. Oh, don't you? It's probably good.
I don't know. I'll find it somewhere.
More than likely, you have a lot of new listeners from long back when we did that one.
Yes.
So I don't know. I used to set like all of these goals that it's okay, Jan 1, I'm going to start doing all of this that day.
Yes.
And like maybe it's just you live life and you realize that's not either the healthiest or attainable. And if you're not setting attainable goals, and I call them goals, I don't call them resolutions anymore. So
why is that? Do the words have different like connotations to you?
To me, like a resolution is like super finite.
Okay.
Granted, you can set a resolution to have a goal, and then it's like,
work around there.
80% of the time I'm right 100% of the time.
Yeah.
It's like one of those.
Yeah.
So I set things that, again, like we talked about in our last long podcast, like as long as the trend line is going in the right direction, cool.
Yeah.
Because life happens.
Yes.
If 2020 taught us anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I set things that, in general, by the end of the year, I'd like to have this, and I feel like it's attainable.
Well, that's a good point. Is one of the notes I have here,
and then I break it down.
The intensity of a goal.
Yeah.
So when we think about, like, you and I have set some goals. So give the listeners maybe 2 examples of goals that you have set and been successful at in your life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Getting into graduate school.
Oh, hell yeah, you crushed that. So give them a brief little background about what went through, like, the process of that.
Oof. A lot of research of figuring out where to go. A lot of, on YouTube, I'll give a shout out to Charlie and Angela.
Yeah, absolutely.
At Career Protocol. Yeah. Those videos were extremely helpful in determining what type of program, what program, culture fit, and it was just like really easy watching.
Yes.
So I did a lot of research to figure out, is this the right time? Do I want to do it? Why do I want to do it? And it took like a year of soul searching to know where to identify, where to apply, what I need to do, the meeting with admissions folks at the schools, and here's my resume, here's my experience, what do I need to work on this next year to be more suitable to get in. So it was like a labor of love, and it was not something that happens overnight. And then it's study for the GMAT at 37.
Yeah, which is pretty far removed from those kind of things. Yeah.
So it was like getting back into that way of thinking. So there were a lot of steps in the process to work towards applying and then to finally do it. Yeah. Which I now go to the Kellogg School of Management.
Yeah.
So very blessed to be part of that group and cohort. So that was one big goal.
Yes. Good.
Another one, the wedding dress story. Like,
oh, there you go.
I mean, if we're talking about like diet fitness,
well, that would be good because you had one like kind of outside of the fitness realm,
right?
Like a life goal,
which was like long,
a
long running. Another long running was the bodybuilding competitions.
That's true. Yeah, so you've set that goal, and then you went through a crazy ordeal with that. Yeah. Now the wedding dress story, for those who don't know, we do have.
I was personally victimized by a bridal. Yes. Shop.
So we have full details in podcast 836. So you can find older podcasts on the website. Go to
836?
Yeah.
That was the wedding one?
Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So you can go to our website, www.brutalonggym.com. We have a podcast player on the homepage. It only goes back 300 episodes, but under the player we have instructions on how to find older podcasts. So they can go back and listen to 836 for the full story. But we lost... It was like size 10 down to size 4, and they even had to take a 4 in.
Right.
And that was in like 8 months or so. Something like that. Yeah.
With everything else.
Yeah. So that was a cool, like not really weight loss because we didn't track your weight. It was a shape change.
It was just a shape change.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I didn't get on the scale at all.
No, you never tracked your weight, and I didn't modify anything based on your weight. I modified it based on
how I looked,
how you were looking.
Yeah.
So that was a cool, 8-9 month journey. Yeah. Went from size 10 down to size 4, and they had to take it in. So we'd have like a life goal, which was like Kellogg.
Right.
You have fitness goal, which was the wedding dress.
Financial goal, buying a house.
Yeah, there you go. That was cool. Yep, so we bought a house recently.
I'm trying to think of another, like, genre one.
Like, financially, we always, like, you sit down and do really pretty awesome Excel sheets, super detailed.
Yeah.
And then we both work towards that, like, towards balancing spending and saving and quality of life. So we both allow for expenses in personal health.
My hair.
Okay.
And my skin.
Okay.
Like, my hair was damaged. So I had, I used to have, like, Marvel comic red hair.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, like, this is just something where I feel like it's ancillary to other goals. So it was, like, bleached and red, and then I had to bring it back to life. And my skin wasn't, like, the best. So I worked on skincare for a year and found the best mix of things. So that was another goal.
Well, how long did that take? Like, for those... like
a year.
For me, like, for a male, they might not understand, okay, she fixed her hair. Like, you went to the salon and it was good.
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
It took a year.
Okay, cool.
It was a year. Yeah. And I realize now as I'm telling this story, I probably cut you off.
Oh, we can go. Oh, you're fine. You can come back to that. But,
my brain's on types of goals and goals.
Yeah. So the hair thing was trying to find the right products.
Yeah.
Doing research, then actually taking the time to let the products work.
Yeah.
So that took you a year.
Yeah.
PRP.
Yeah, I did. Oh, well, that was like a separate thing. Because I was so stressed my hair was falling out and I had a significant receding hairline.
Yeah, which is a bummer.
So then I got PRP into my skull.
Yes.
I wouldn't consider that I'm going to make my hair healthier. Because that was a very extreme, but had to happen because I was...
So it was hair, but it wasn't the same thing.
Yeah. This was like, I had bleached and dyed my hair red. I had extensions, for a long period of time because my hair wasn't healthy enough to grow it long. So I took the extensions out. And thanks to 2020, where everyone was home, I could go through that awkward phase of trying to heal it all.
Yeah.
So that would be one of those circumstantial goals that we've talked about.
Yeah.
Like, were the circumstances right for that time?
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a lot of goals that are listed there. And the reason why I wanted you to go through that is the next set of things, like questions I wanted to ask you and topics would be is what factors do you consider when setting a goal in order to be successful? So I wanted to give a variety of the goals that's showing that some are super long, some are short, some are fitness related, some are financial related, some are, other self-care related. So when we want to be successful with a goal, whatever it might be. So any listener, the idea of this is now you can relate to what we're about to say because what we're about to say covers any goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prior to that, unrelatable. Just kidding.
Yes. So at this point, everything actually matters. Yeah. So when we think about factors to consider in order to make a goal successful is what level of accomplishment do you consider a success? Reason why is like some people, for example, they'll talk to me and they're like, okay, I want to lose 60 pounds by June. And I'm like, well, what if you lose 50?
What month is it?
Well, I'll just be like, what if you lose 50 by June? Is that failure?
Yeah, true.
And they're like, well, no, 50 is pretty significant. And I'm like, that's good to know because if you get to June and say you lost your job, there was family issues, you had to move, and you only lose 50 pounds, that's still a badass accomplishment. And it's important that we keep a broader perspective and not get so dead set on these like definitive numbers.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So when you set a goal for grad school, it wasn't necessarily Kellogg or bust. Kellogg was what we wanted, but there were some other schools that would have been pretty good.
Yeah.
And we definitely
I got into good ones.
Yeah.
And then it was really, I wasn't expecting to have these options, and now panic sets in.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, and then fixing your hair. There's no test to know when your hair is 100%.
Right.
But it was like, okay, can it just be better than it was?
Yeah.
So a lot of goals that we set.
Success metrics. You have to define what makes this successful. I know this is we like at work we talk about the definition of done. What does success look like? All that. So then you just apply it to everything else you do. Mm-hmm. So I think it's. So what was the original question? How do I know?
What level of accomplishment would you consider a success? So the original question is what factors you can consider in order to be successful. And I have factors that we're going to go through. And the first one I want to touch on was what level of accomplishment. So since this is a fitness podcast,
yeah,
when you did your bodybuilding show,
yeah,
what was your definition of success going into it? Winning?
Yeah.
Okay.
Top 5.
Top 5. Now, was that your first show?
Yes.
I love it because that's exactly what I tell people not to do.
Whoopsie.
But that's the difference between the athlete and the coach.
Yeah. And it was a really fun process. Like, I had a coach that wasn't you at the time, and we got along, and we had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like, the workouts were really fun. I looked forward to, like, 5 a.m. sessions.
Wild, yeah.
Yeah. So we had that made it nice.
That's awesome, yeah. And it is, it's a balance. Like, I've competed before in different things, and there's the athlete brain, then there's the coach brain.
Yeah.
And for me as a coach, I look out for the person's well-being. Mm-hmm. Like, I want them to be successful in, like, the thing we're doing, but I also want them to be happy. I want them to not go through emotional stress. That's unnecessary. So I tend to be very protective towards the people I work with. So when I tell somebody, like, let's do a competition, I want them to win, but at the same time as I kind of tell them, you do realize just even getting on stage is a win. Let's keep that.
Okay, so if I pause and really think back, I probably thought just like being able to get on stage was the win, like executing it, getting to that point, not backing out, not ringing the bell and quitting.
Yeah.
So I definitely wanted to do that because we talked in the other podcast, 1880, that I was supposed to compete in April and lost my job and fell backwards and had to do it all over again.
Yeah.
So, like, to me, I suppose I could have said I was still kind of successful because I was ready to the point where I could do this. But to me, that wasn't like...
Well, that brings forth a good point, too, is there can be multiple options of success.
Mm-hmm.
I got on stage, that's level 1. I was top 5, that's level 2.
Right.
I won the show, level 3.
True.
So it's good to think of, okay, I don't have to choose one metric as my level of success, but I also don't have to set the bar so low that I question whether it's even successful.
Right.
Like, I don't be like, okay, I want 60 pounds, but if I lose 5, I win. No.
Yeah.
If you're like, 5 isn't meaningful to me,
yeah,
I don't want to be like nicey nice and politically correct and try to say, like, I'm okay with this, when you're not.
Yeah.
But it's good to know that there's range to success.
And a lot of that range of success depends on where you are in life.
Oh, absolutely.
So when I was struggling with depression, brushing my teeth every day, win. Mm-hmm. I won the day. Yeah. That was it. Like, just get up and do a thing.
Yeah.
And
very true.
It was a win. On the flip side, you know, the polar opposite of that is getting on stage and winning a fitness, like a figure competition.
That's pretty awesome, yes.
So it does depend on the stage where you are. What, you know, at the time, I knew my life was relatively stable, and even saying that is kind of like a joke because it was so rough. Yeah. But I knew I could be relatively consistent to make the goal.
Good.
Like, I was single.
Yeah.
And the gym was 10 minutes from work. And I lived 10 minutes from the gym and work. So it was, the life layout made it possible.
Yes. Yeah, and that's actually one of the next factors we can kind of move into is, I'm going to go through 3 of them, and then we're going to talk right back through them. So I have 5 more things that we would consider. So 6 total, and I'll review all this at the end. But the next one is, what's the timeline? Then how intense will the effort need to be in order for me to reach that level of success by that time? Which then leads into the next one, which is, what's the trade-off?
Ooh.
So when we think about success, like, we have an idea of success.
Yeah.
So I want to win a bodybuilding show. I want to lose 60 pounds. I want to add 100 pounds to my squat. I want to, decrease my mile time by 20 seconds. Whatever it might be, you have a timeline. I mean, you have a level of success. Now we have to define a timeline.
Right.
When would I want to do that? Is there a vacation coming up? Is there a competition date? Is there really no end date? I'm just arbitrarily setting it. I think understanding the timeline and our level of success are important, because then we can define how intense the effort needs to be. So, can you think of a time where you had a high level of success in a very short time frame?
Oh, no.
Okay, so I'll give one for this one. Is I've done 3 diets where I tried to lose 50 pounds in 10 weeks or less.
Oh, yes.
So I've done it successfully, and I did one time I lost 50 pounds in 8 weeks. So those are high insane. Level of success with a short amount of time.
Yeah, that is
now
wild.
With those two in mind, I think of what is the intensity of the effort that's needed, and it was all consuming. So at that time, I was going to grad school. I was teaching at school, and I had 2 part-time jobs, but that still felt to me not much. So I then added those goals.
We're the same.
Yes. So my mind was, okay, teaching doesn't influence. Excuse me. Teaching doesn't influence what I eat. Like it won't ruin what I have to eat to reach the goal. Going to classes won't ruin that. The part-time jobs, the one job I could eat at in the boss didn't mind. The other job was me. I was the boss. I was training people. So I could eat on the way to a client session. I could eat out of a client session. So I had a lot of control over what I ate. And I had a lot of control over activity level because I knew to lose 50 pounds in that short of time, it can't be only nutrition. It has to be activity.
Yeah.
So I would get up at 5:30 in the morning, do cardio. I would then teach an 8 a.m. class. I would do a workout. Then I taught in like 11 a.m. class. And then I had classes in the afternoon and work in the evening. But it was all able to be able to fit it in.
Yeah.
So that is something to think of is what's the intensity that I need in order to reach that goal. Because then I have to think of what are the trade-offs. If it's high intensity, everything else in life has to go
pause.
Yes.
Yeah.
So all of those things are important to balance. Is what is the level of success I want? Do I have a definitive timeline? So say, for example, you want to do a bodybuilding show. That's a definitive date.
Yeah.
I don't get to pick that. Now, I can pick a different show. But let's say that this is the one that's close to me. I want my family to be able to come. It fits between like work schedule, like work traveling. It fits between other things. So it's really the date that would work best.
Right.
So the goal is take the body I have now to what would be good on stage. Huge transition, huge goal. So huge level of success. The timeline is definitive. Then it's like, okay, what do I need to do to make that timeline? And then what do I have to trade off? Can you think of examples where you've had to make trade-offs?
All the time.
Yes. So going to grad school, what trade-off did you have to make?
Missing fun.
There you go.
Like applying for it. Like grad school is fun, but it was
grad school's fun.
All right, have fun with your bonfire, and enjoy, the movie. Like I can't go because of XYZ. Like I missed like a work event because I had the GMAT the next day. Like it was a lot of trade-offs. Didn't see family too much.
Yeah.
And there were times where it was like, I remember one time I got pretty emotional because I'm like, I'm just missing so much and I hope this is worth it because it's kind of outside of your control.
True.
And that's where we talked about like, what can you really control or not? Yeah, but that was a trade-off. I mean, doing the bodybuilding show.
Yeah, what trade-offs did you make there?
Food.
Yeah. I want this food, therefore I can't eat what I want to eat.
Sitting at work and listening to people say they're hungry and being like so enraged and try to keep your cool.
You don't know what hungry is.
You don't know what hungry is.
I would eat this desk.
Yeah. I would eat you. Like so the trade-offs were like events and going out and eating with people, like all of my ice water and tea, thanks.
Yeah.
And but you can still go do those things. You just learn that, events don't have to revolve around food. And so then you start your mind shit. Mind shit? Yeah. It's 2020. Yeah. Your mindset changes.
Yeah.
A lot.
Well, I had a client wanted to do a bodybuilding show, and he told his fiance at the time that they used to go to the movies.
Did they break up?
No, thankfully. Otherwise, I'd feel like crap that I was part of that. But they used to go to the movies. They had like a cinema pass.
No.
And then he said like, I'm getting ready for the show. I can't go to the movies anymore. Oh. And like for the fiance, that was quite big because that was their date thing.
That's their thing.
And I told him, I said, dude, why aren't you going to the movies? And he's like, well,
ice chips.
The movie's 2 hours. If I eat before we go, it's 2 hours, too long of a gap by the time I get back. And I look at him and I go, who told you these time frames? What are you talking about? I was like, I never gave you time windows like that. Yeah. So we talked about just putting more fat content in the meal before the movie,
right.
so it takes longer to digest, and then he could go to the movie and still eat when he comes home. We would just bring the fat content down from the meal when he got home.
Or be like me and put shredded chicken in a Ziploc baggie, and
Absolutely.
You're good to go.
Yes. Yeah. But there are ways. Like, that's exactly it. You modify the meals, or you take food with you to places. Yeah. I've taken food into restaurants.
Yes.
Before, just
Guilty.
because I wanted to be with friends, but I didn't want to eat their food.
Guilty.
Yes.
I got kicked out of a restaurant once.
You got kicked out?
Yeah, and my friend cussed him off. It was amazing. It was really fun to watch. Nice. I felt kind of bad, but like, ma'am, you can't have that in here. And I almost wanted to be like, do you have to get on stage in 4 weeks? Like, yeah. You know. And
that's surprising. I've never had
And I said, I will buy food and just give it to someone else so I can have my seat. And they still wouldn't let me do it.
Oh, that's crazy, Vance.
And I thought, what?
Yeah.
Like, you were literally straight profit. Here's money. Don't cook the food.
Yes.
It didn't matter.
Wild.
Yeah, it was weird.
Okay. But that's an example where the trade-off, sometimes people are unaware that they have to make a trade-off, and then it surprises the crap out of them, and then they're screwed.
Right.
Other times people think they have to trade off things they don't have to trade off. Mm-hmm. And that's challenging in both ways. Like, you think, oh, it's smooth sailing, and then you hit this thing, and you're like, oh, crap, I have to give this up for a time period. Am I ready for that? But you didn't decide beforehand, so now all of a sudden you're facing that decision in the middle.
Yeah.
And then other times, you feel like you have to give up so much that it makes you question a goal or fail at the goal, when maybe if you talk to somebody who's been through it, they would tell you, hey, you don't have to actually give that up. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So educating along the way is super important, which leads to the last two things, is what could be the potential obstacles and what will be my learning resources. So when I set goals, especially in business, I often think to myself is, hey, I think this would be a good idea. Who do I know that would know about this?
Oh, yeah.
And then I just ask them,
resourceful.
Yeah, like, hey, you do this. Like, how do you make that work? You know, or you do something similar to this. So when I set goals, part of me deciding all the steps that we've talked about so far is also, who do I know that I can learn from? Mm-hmm. Whether that's a YouTube video, whether it's an audio book, or an actual book if people read. I do a lot of audios. Or an actual person.
Right.
So I have a awesome network of people. I've worked with over 3,000 people, so
yeah, you do know
a lot of people.
Crazy amount of people that do a little bit of everything.
Yes, so very fortunate that there's somebody I know that knows it. Mm-hmm. So I usually think to myself before I would commit to a goal and set parameters to research a little bit and talk to people.
Yeah.
Yes. So your application to grad school almost was research at first, career protocol.
Straight research.
Yeah. Now, when you think about the research aspect, quote unquote, for the bodybuilding show, I'm assuming the research was finding a good trainer and then just trusting the trainer.
Yes. Mm-hmm. It was word of mouth.
There you go.
So to find, someone that looked fit.
Yes. And
who do you go to? What do you do? Mm-hmm. And then, you've competed? How do I do that? Who do I contact? And I trusted that. I didn't do a whole lot of, I did some due diligence. I looked at their
just
clients.
Not as much compared to grad school.
Right. Yeah. I was also 30.
Yeah.
So, how much time am I want to do it. I'm not going to spend too long.
It's also something to point out. I coach people for powerlifting and aesthetic competitions. I coached somebody 16 years old for a bodybuilding show.
Yeah.
I've coached teenagers in early 20s for powerlifting. And this is, I certainly don't mean anything offensive in what I'm about to say because I've been all of those ages. But how much could they know at 16, 17, 18 versus somebody who's 40 years old and has done this for 20 years?
Right.
So it's
shiny versus grizzled.
There you go. So the younger you are, the more important it is to lean into people who know that stuff.
Right.
Because you could have watched so many videos and read so many books, but if you only have 3 years experience, but you have access to somebody who has 30 years, there's got to be something you can learn from them.
Right.
So it's definitely worth reaching out and talking to people. So what I was when I was younger was the younger I was, the more I felt like I could do it. Almost like, I don't need anybody else, I'm fine. And I laugh because now that I'm 40 and older, I realize I actually did know a lot at that time.
But I didn't know.
But I could have benefited from talking to somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like, it's not like at 40 now I'm like, screw everyone, I don't need to talk to anybody now that I'm old. But now the more people I talk to, the more I would know more than them.
Right.
So your pool of people to talk to as you get more advanced, it's smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
But when you're younger, man, ask some questions, talk to some people. That can feel overwhelming because you get a million pieces of advice. Yeah. So you do eventually have to pick one pathway and go with it.
Yeah.
You know, but talking to other people is helpful.
Absolutely.
Yes. So that's a big thing. And then what are potential obstacles? Thinking through ahead of time, what am I going to run into is important because that helps kind of prepare yourself.
Yeah.
So have you had a goal where you set and maybe you failed, or you haven't completed it yet, or it took multiple approaches, multiple attempts?
I mean, I just keep using the same bodybuilding one because
that's a great one.
I had to stop. Like, everything took a pause and worked and started over again.
Yes. So when we think about that, what forced the pause? Was it financial?
It was everything.
Stress?
I mean, you lose your job, don't have income, don't have any savings because I just left education, couldn't make any money, and like I literally had nothing.
Yeah.
What am I, like, I'm not going to live in a freaking gym. Like,
no.
That is completely freaking irresponsible.
Can't sleep in the closet. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So when I asked that question...
I'm trying to think of, like, another example.
Yeah.
Back when I was, doing CrossFit, and they were trying to get a team together to train to go to regionals for a team. Like, go to the games as a team.
Yeah.
Let's train as a group and see if we can get to regionals. Yeah. And then you're in the gym and trying to lift heavy. And that would be one where it was a failure because I was trying to do cleans and I couldn't drop under the bar. I just couldn't drop. And I'm thinking, what the hell is happening?
That's
no.
That's right.
This is the different one. Yes. So not only was my body caved inward and screwed up to where I would catch my cleans with one knee on the ground, but something was really off. Like I all of a sudden just couldn't. I had no reaction. Olympic lifting, you gotta have some speed.
Yes,
you gotta have some speed, and I had zero speed. Sloth level. And that's when I had my students like use the reflex hammer to check my reflexes, and I didn't have a reaction in my legs. There was no patellar tendon reflex, so that was alarming.
Yeah.
And so I went to the doctor and said, I think I have an endocrine problem. And they're like, okay.
Yeah.
And I said, no, really? Can you check my hormones? And thankfully, at the time, the doctor knew me to know I was a well-researched patient who knows myself.
Yeah.
And sure enough, my parathyroid hormones were sky high, which caused low to no reflexes and depression. And then I had got an MRI and I had a tumor, parathyroid tumor. And then I had to have surgery, so incision in my throat, to have that removed, and stopped training and never got to know how good could I get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talking about that, this could be fun, little just side topic if you don't mind. Listeners will have run into that. Somebody out there will have said, I had a goal in mind. Stuff came up outside of my control, and now that goal isn't even possible anymore.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? How do you manage the mental aspect of that?
You kind of have to feel the feels a little bit for a while to realize, it's sad to watch other people doing it, and you can't kind of work through it and then try to just have a mindset shift and say, okay, I can't do this thing. What can I do that's a tangent? Or what could I do that would bring me joy?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah.
So that's that's kind of just, that was probably one of the first-ish times where it's like, okay, this isn't going to end up the way I thought, so I have to find something else and figure out what that looks like. So just a shift. I mean,
it's a hard pivot.
To this day, I'm like, oh, man, that would have been really cool. I wonder what could have been.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know that goes away depending on the type of person you are.
Fair. Yep.
But I also look back and knew I pivoted and did some pretty cool stuff in the same realm. Like it's now, the CrossFit HQ series.
That's true. Yeah.
Kinda.
That's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting point is the longer somebody stays focused on what they lost, you stay lost.
You get, I did not want to open Pandora's box a little bit, but it's like growing up with some of the life circumstances that I've gone through. I feel that I could easily be a bitter person if I let myself be bitter.
Yeah.
But I don't want to live like that.
Mm-hmm.
And learning early on not to be bitter about a life circumstance, you then tend to look at things that maybe fail or don't work out the way you want, and you flip the switch a little faster.
Yeah.
Or it's like, I don't want to be this person, so every scenario I enter or go through, I get to practice that mindset shift.
There you go. Yeah, true.
And that's kind of big. So it's kind of like if no one's really experienced adversity or they're going through that experience for the first time, that could be a really, really hard shift. But you have to say, what do I want to be remembered for? We're getting like super deep here.
This is
like,
great. I actually know 2 clients who are struggling with this concept right now.
Oh.
So this is good.
Okay. So then it's like, what do I want to be remembered for? Who do I want to be? Who do I want?
Yeah.
If someone's giving my eulogy, what do I want them to say?
There you go.
I don't want them to be like, she was bitter AF.
She one time wasn't able to go to the CrossFit Games as a kid.
Yeah. She failed once.
Yeah.
At something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's tough, but it's like when I lost my job opportunity in March of 2020. They pulled it out from under me the day before I was supposed to start.
Yeah.
You and I, besides calling you freaking out and sobbing that this happened, and you I think probably ran all the red lights coming home.
Yeah, it was unsafe.
It was not the best. At least you had your seatbelt on. I gave myself 2 days, and then I just got it into gear because I had to do that in my life growing up.
Yeah, you had a very fast turnaround because you've had an unfortunate amount of practice at it.
Yeah, I've had to. But moral of the story is it takes practice. Mm-hmm. And if you can't flip the switch fast enough, you're not a failure.
Yeah, don't beat yourself up for it.
You just have to realize, do I want to be this person or not?
Yeah.
I remember a friend of mine at the time, we were close for a long time. And then it became maybe a little bit of irony, but they were just always complaining about their life circumstances, and it got to be a bit of a Debbie Downer, and I was like, I just don't like being around this.
No.
And then they never ask how you are, and it's just whine, and it's like, okay, just been through too much to listen to it.
And especially if it's not just a season, there's not just a bad month or two for them, but if it's been 3 years of that, you're like, oh, okay, we got to move on.
Right.
I have to move on.
So I remember posting on the Instagram that just some kind of inspirational thing.
Oh, that aggravated people.
right after I lost my job, I was doing, paying off the debt at $1,000 in savings. Everything was going to debt. I just was living what I thought would be a good thing. I was following a plan, doing a thing. And then I'm like, well, it's a national hiring freeze. I can't get unemployment because they tell me I quit, which I didn't. It was just a whole mess.
Yeah.
And I had to have a mindset shift.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I posted something that was motivating to me, and they just outright got offended by something. I'm like, hey, this might not be for you. This isn't coming at you. And don't assume that I have it easy peasy right now and you're struggling and this is hard for you, it's hard for me too. I'm just deciding to have a different outlook.
Yes.
We never talked again.
No, I mean, and that's unfortunate, but that's not your fault.
No. And I probably sound pretty callous. I'm not a callous person.
No, it's not callous. I think people are going to understand is if you were able to have a success in your life in regards to change of mindset and moving forward.
Right.
A friend should say, I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
Not,
how dare you.
I don't like how your success is making me feel towards myself, so therefore I'm going to express hate towards you.
Yeah.
Or like dislike towards you.
Yeah.
Like, no, if a friend has success, you celebrate your friend's success. Independent of whether you've had success or not.
Yeah.
You can be happy for other people even when you're not happy.
Yeah. They did, but that's the thing too, is like you kind of like lose acquaintances. It became more of an acquaintance kind of a thing because I was a little like, okay, like we haven't had a conversation in a while because it was always just this like downer conversations. And so out of the blue, they're just like coming at me. Yeah. I was like, you know nothing about what's happening in my life right now.
And you have to be careful with energy. Like, so I'm not a big fan of having people negative around me.
Energy vampires. Yes. It's awful. It's a real thing.
Like, I support people all day, and I love that part of my job. But at the same time I think everyone will be universal in the sense that we want to support people who are either progressing or it's so new that they're not ready for the progress.
Yeah.
You understand that?
Yeah.
But at the same time, as once time has passed, if they're complaining about the same thing but they're not doing anything about it, how much longer do you want to hear that complaint?
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to be around that too often, too much, because then you start looking at negatives in your life or you start feeling worn out and exhausted.
Yeah. So,
like, I'm a very energy transfer person.
Me too. Yeah. Is being an empath.
Yeah.
So even in that moment, so you can uncover a couple goals.
Yeah.
So it felt like there's nothing, like, what am I going to do? And then all of a sudden the goal was, I'm going to practice this mindset shift. I'm going to protect my energy and just continue to surround myself with people that are energy givers, not energy vampires.
Yes.
So even in those moments, you can find things that can be a goal.
I think it's a good point, too. It's like, when you're low in energy, find people who have energy and spend more time with them. Yeah. So that can help bring you out. Like, if I want to be a bodybuilder, go find bodybuilder friends. If I want to be in CrossFit, go find CrossFit friends.
Yeah.
You know, find people who are where you want to be.
Yes.
And that will help bring you up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's I like that we kind of dovetailed off into that, because I think it's a very good topic for people is when you try something and it doesn't work, whether it's in your control or outside of your control and you can't get it again, the best thing to do is to try to find something next. So if you focus on what you lost, you stay lost. So you have to find out what you can still do.
Right.
So I've tried a lot of things in business where I was like, oh, this is a great idea. I try it and it flops. And then in my mind, I'm like, oh, well. And then I just try the next idea. And I don't worry too much about something, whether something flopped or not. I don't take it as like a personal failure. I just say, okay, that wasn't the method in which the information was transferred the best.
Right.
So what is another method I have? What's another option I have?
Right.
You know, and the more you can pivot and think,
I was just about to say, like, we're pivoters. Yeah. We pivot. We but you have to practice that.
Yes. It's definitely a process through life.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, like, if I also reflective, I look back. I do set goals every year, and for a long time I was like checking in quarterly and resetting for the next quarter, and it was a big process. And this past year, I set none. I had one. It was get into school and start and be done, and that's it. That was my one goal.
Because it was a pretty consuming goal.
It was all consuming and a lot of trade-offs. Mm-hmm. So because there were so many trade-offs, I couldn't set any other goals.
Yeah, there was nothing else to trade for another
There was
goal.
nothing else.
Yeah.
That was just the one thing I had.
Think about people trade like baseball cards. You know, if I have 10 baseball cards and I want like a Michael Jordan rookie card,
I'm going to need 500 more cards to...
I got to give everything I got. So it's like if I have the bigger the goal, the more I have to trade off. Yeah. Therefore, I have less other things to trade. Mm-hmm. Therefore, I can't have other goals.
So my normal notebook where I would like log everything for 2023 is blank because I had one goal. I'm like, I'm not going to write it down and check in. I know exactly where I am at all times with this goal.
Yeah. And that's true. Like sometimes you need check-ins if you have multiple goals to organize your efforts. Sometimes, even if you have one goal, it's good to check in. If it's something that I don't do this naturally, Let me do check-ins to see where I'm at. So, for example, I won't even go into it, but how many times people tell me they eat healthy, but yet when you actually track what they do, it is not as consistent and healthy.
I didn't know a pound of Swedish fish was healthy. That's wild.
Yeah. But that's the case is often we assume we're doing something, but we're not. But sometimes, like in your case, you're like, this is my sole focus. I know exactly what I'm doing every day. I wake up every day. I have a plan of what to do every day. I did the thing. So you're mini tracking as you go. Like
and
you get daily plan.
Actually, I kind of lied a little bit.
Okay.
Because I set up that tracker. Like the really massive calendar, and it was like, I'm going to work out 20 minutes a day of some kind for, was it 24 weeks?
It was something really, it was like from February to September.
17 times 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
34.
It was 14 huge. Sections of 14 days.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, so 14 times 14, whatever that math is.
And so that was an ancillary goal. While trying to get into school. Yeah,
so that was a small goal in the sense of what's the trade-off to just move for 20 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Versus I want to be in the gym 1 hour, 5 days a week. That's a huge trade-off comparison.
And that's true. So like there was very little margin for other goals for me because I am all in if I'm doing something. So to do 20 minutes a day forced myself to stop working and take a break, to stop studying and take a break, to do something and just do this thing for 20 minutes. And there were days it felt like I am going against the wind and it was very uncomfortable and I didn't want to do it, or I was doing it at 11 o'clock at night. But I did it. I'm going to get more coffee.
Sure. So these are all things to consider is whenever we're talking about, in general, the podcast topic is goal setting. And we touched on it with the viewpoint of New Year's resolutions. So if you're the type that wants to set a New Year's resolution, or you're considering it, the factors to consider if you want to be successful. We have 6 of them, so I'm going to read through them, and then what I would suggest you do is just take question by question and think through how the answers might apply to your situation. So the first question is, what level of accomplishment would you consider a success? And recognize that you don't have to have a definitive goal. It can be a range. There could be a bottom success, a top success, but it's good to have that defined. Then what's the timeline? So I have what I would consider success. I have when I want to be successful at it. And then how intense will the effort need to be for me to reach that goal? It's important to consider that because it then leads into the fourth question is, what's the trade-offs? The more intense, the more trade-offs. Do I have space to make these trade-offs in my life? Do I have just the amount to trade? For example, you would say, if I have a number one priority of being really good at my job, I want family relationships, I want to do this other thing, maybe financial savings. Those aren't things you want to trade. So you might not have a lot of trade-off because you have other goals that are as important. The fifth question is, what could be potential obstacles? And the sixth question is, what will be my learning resources? So people can use the podcast. They can use us or me. Email me at brutalironjim@gmail.com. Tell me what you want to do, and I'll help you with it. So we're offering, for example, free 15-minute consultations now. So if somebody's interested in working together, we set up a Zoom, talk for 15 minutes. I'd like to get to know you, what your goals are. Then we can talk about what your challenges and struggles have been, and then I can give you some ideas on how we would work through those to still be successful. So I can actually help you set up the goals if you'd like. And again, you can contact me via email, brutalironjim@gmail.com.
Yeah. And me. I'm
Yes.
going to be found there too.
Absolutely, yeah. So if you want to talk to Meredith, just put her name in the header or somewhere in the email, and I'll share it with her. Yeah. But so that's pretty much what we wanted to cover. Do you have any parting words of advice if anybody's setting a New Year's resolution?
Be honest with yourself.
Okay.
Take stock of where you are and really take stock of what could be attainable and set some ancillary goals of what does success look like? If I don't do this, I can do this other thing and still be happy.
True.
But just be honest. Don't set yourself up to fail because then you're going to lose momentum and that makes it really, really challenging. Set a tracker.
There you go.
Track what you're doing in a journal, in a graph paper, like make a chart and track it. Whatever helps keep you moving forward every day. That would be the second piece of advice. Set something that's realistic, but maybe a stretch that'll grow you and your mindset, and track the progress. If it feels like it fails or it stops, just realize that it's more about the consistency. Just pick back up and keep going.
There you go.
More than likely, it's like when you're dieting and all of a sudden you have like a hamburger and fries and you just get right back onto what you're doing. That's not going to derail in all of your work.
Success doesn't require perfection. It requires progress.
Progress, not perfection.
There you go. Yes.
Parting words of wisdom.
Yeah.
From a perfectionist.
Yeah. Two recovering perfectionists.
Progressionist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'll give is another podcast to listen to. Is podcast 1375. Is a Q&A podcast titled Learning to Parent Yourself. So a parent can be defined in a lot of ways, but one way to define a parent is they help with tough love, meaning they're tough to get you to improve yourself in certain areas, but they love you enough to support you through that improvement. So, Meredith's laughing for various reasons, but the podcast Learning to Parent Yourself is a good podcast because that's the process that will require for you to reach a goal. So the goal is likely we're going to require behaviors and actions different than what you currently do. There will be challenges, there will be friction, there will be obstacles in the way. How do you manage that? And part of that is learned through podcast 1375. How do you get yourself to do the things you should do, not necessarily the things you want to do? That kind of thing. Okay, so you can find that podcast again on our website, www.brutalirongym.com. Cool. So I think that's everything. So if you like the podcast, share the podcast. If you like the podcast, please consider donating to support the podcast, which you can do on our website. If you like the information we share in the podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. Thank you, Meredith, for joining us.
Thank you.
Yes. And then, as always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.